Test, test. Councilmember Vice Mayor Purduck, can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear.
You are muted, I believe.
Not on my screen.
Oh, hold on one moment.
Yeah. Made me jump and I did it. I did it.
Okay, test, test, test. Can you hear?
I
Vice Mayor
can't.
Purduck?
I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Very good.
Bishop. You down in Bishop, Dean?
You'd think I'd figure out this unmute thing by now. Good evening, council. That was last week. I'm headed there on Monday, but I'm not in there right. I'm not there right now.
Just looking at your background.
Thank you.
All right, we'll call the city council special meeting to order at 6 p.m. We had earlier a closed session. First item is we already did roll call, so we go to Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Claffey, would you do the honors? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There are no reportable actions from our closed session earlier. We'll go to presentations. I'll stand up.
Stand up. Can I do it up here?
Sure.
But they can't hear on TV, so. Yeah, come down.
Okay.
They can't hear on the television. Is this on now? Okay, all right. So this is, we're giving you a presentation from, for you being our mayor, and you've done an awesome job. And as I said before, privately, I want to say publicly that I have really respected your knowledge and directing the city in doing the things that we've been doing lately. And, you know, it's been comfortable having you there for us to make sure that things are going right because of your talent. So this is a plaque from us in the city of Clearlake, thanking you for your time and you're taking
thank you.
that. And Karen also, because I know it has to take her time too. So
It's been an honor to be your mayor, and I hope that we have all moved the city forward in all of our endeavors. So thank you again, and I'm honored with this plaque. Thank you.
Great job.
All right, we'll go to the consent agenda. Are there any? It doesn't look like there are any.
You can skip that one.
Okay, good. New business. Item number 3, authorization of an amendment to the Clearlake Police Officers Association memorandum of understanding to modify the salary. Mr. Flores.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members. So the council approved a new contract with the Police Officers Association starting in July of this year. You know, it's been the council's interest that our police officers are the best paid in the county. And, you know, as you know, recruitment and retention in particular of police officers is extraordinarily difficult, but, you know, I'm proud of how successful the department's been over the last several years in both of those regards. But there's another local agency that recently approved a new contract, which exceeds some of our police officer pay and, you know, causing us a little bit of concern on continued recruitment and retention. And so staff met with the POA and are recommending 2 changes to the existing MOU that we think will sort of put us back in the most competitive spot here locally. And so those 2 changes would be a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for all police officers. This would be effective the first full pay period after January 1. And then adding a 6th salary step to the salary schedule. So currently we have 5 steps in our salary schedule for all positions, and this would add an additional one that police officers would be eligible for after 5 years of service with the city. So with that, I'll just try to address any questions the council may have.
Do we have any questions from staff? Mr. Purdock, Vice Mayor Purdock, no?
No
Okay.
question.
Public, any public comment on this item? Not in the room. Anybody on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
There are no hands raised on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
We'll bring it back to the council for action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to the 2022-2025 CMEA MOU.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote on this one. Madam Clerk, would you?
Councilmember Overton. Councilmember Kramer.
Aye.
Councilmember Claffey.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Purdock.
Aye.
Mayor Slotin.
Aye. We go to item number 4 on the agenda, approve the cannabis equity program and authorize the city manager to implement the program. Mr. Flora.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, council members. So if you can remember back almost exactly a year ago, well, even before that, the city received some grant funding from the state to do an assessment of cannabis activity in the city. And so that was, we contracted with some of the faculty from Humboldt State University that put this together, and they've done a number of these, including for the County of Lake. The next step in that under the state program is creating an equity program, which is intended to provide funding for cannabis business owners to rectify some of the issues with cannabis criminalization, I guess, over the years. So anyway, at the time, the council reviewed the program, and there was sort of a lack of comfort with some of the requirements in the program. But based on timing, we didn't really have a chance to really do that much revision and come back because the deadline to apply last year. And then we talked about some cannabis stuff at the last meeting, and there was an interest in bringing this back for consideration. So this is essentially the same plan as what was reviewed last year. There's been a few minor changes made. So here's the plan. See if it's something that the council wants to consider. If so, we would put an application together and get it sent to the state to fund what's outlined in the plan.
Okay, we have a request from staff. Councilwoman Overton.
So I just want to kind of clarify if I'm saying this right, that we apply to the state for the funding, and then then they'll apply to us for the grant money. Is that right? Okay. I just kind of wanted to make sure that was all followed.
Okay. Any other questions from staff? Vice Mayor Purdock?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Okay, very good. We open it to the public. Any public comment on this item?
Go first.
Sometimes you have to be.
Dave Hughes, Mr. Mayor, City Council and staff. I've kind of pondered this thing a little bit and read it a number of times. And I think my big issue comes up in benefiting people that have broken the law in the past. Laws are laws, and if you break the law, you have to pay the consequences. And here we are talking about rewarding people who broke the law in the past with grant monies to put them into a business, which I personally don't like, but I mean, I appreciate grant money to help start businesses, to generate sales tax and jobs. I don't see a lot of jobs being generated. But again, the biggest thing that bothers me is the assistance to people that have broken the law in the past, and how do we know they won't break the law after we put them in business? Obviously, people serve their time and they deserve a second chance, but I just have a problem with that in general. In the resolution, it talks about past criminalization of cannabis has led to an impact on the city of Clearlake community and residents, and there is a need for creation of an equity program that provides assistance. I've been here since 1974, and I don't remember us being impacted by people being arrested for breaking the law in regards to cannabis. But then if I look at Humboldt State being the generation of everything that's here, it makes more sense, because I think Humboldt County was one of the original cannabis areas. So Humboldt State would focus on making it a good thing. Again, looking at the equity manual, these communities were impacted significantly by the criminalization of cannabis. And again, I don't recall that happening. And again, I don't know why we need to reward people that have broken the law in the past. Trying to keep it short, the goal of the applicant scoring system is to ensure that those impacted by cannabis criminalization and poverty have priority access. We're given priority to those people. I see veterans mentioned here. Why aren't veterans the priority? Applicants that are facing barriers to entry and receiving their license. What kind of barriers do they have? Financial, I don't know. Applicants that have already received a license. I think at the last meeting I was at, there were like 9 businesses or people that had licenses, and there were 17 or 27 licenses out there. Is that what, are they having barriers and they're going to benefit from this? I don't know. I'll try to wrap it up here. The equity program manual, district and government conduct outreach and education efforts in the areas that were focused on by law enforcement for cannabis eradication and cannabis arrests. Encourage those individuals to apply for licenses and enter the legal industry. Again, we're kind of rewarding people that have caused problems in the past. Additional services for cannabis businesses. Recommendations are divided into the following categories listed in priority: manufacturing and production, agriculture and cultivation, and then retail. Why isn't retail first? I don't know. It's just a thought I had, generating some jobs and some sales tax. I suppose there's tax monies in the manufacturing and production, although we lowered the production tax from 5% to 1% at the last meeting. If funding is received from the state, the Clearlake City Council will explore local funding that can supplement these efforts. So it may cost our taxpayers some money. So again, I think my biggest problem, I mean, grant monies, when you receive them, you have to go by what the grant says. And that's not always a good thing. And again, my biggest problem is kind of rewarding people that have broken the law in the past. They knew what the law was, they broke the law, and I have a problem rewarding them. Do we need this kind of a program? Sure, in the city. Unfortunately, this just focuses on cannabis and not the community as a whole. I mean, we have a lot of needs out here. Cannabis to me isn't one of them. So I'll be done with that.
Thank you. Any additional comments here in public?
Everyone, Chris Jennings. Clearly everyone's issue, or the main issue it seems to be, is the arrest part of this whole equity thing. So I'm going to try to say a few things to kind of like look at it from a different perspective. California, I forget when, went to medical marijuana laws so many years ago. I forget how many years ago, 20 years now, 25 years, something like that. The county has never tracked as a whole. Clearly, I think started doing this when they started these programs, the medical marijuana program with the 6 plants, never tracked who held a medical marijuana card. So no one knew. And so when the police showed up at your property, and it's not to put the cops down or anything like that, it was not really a thing of, hey, I'm here to check your paperwork, make sure you're a medical marijuana user and you're using everything appropriately. It was, they're entering into a scene, life, safety, all these factors came into play when they came in. People get arrested, you get your garden chopped, you get charged. And then you got to go to court and prove why you don't belong to be charged for your 6 plants, 36 plants, whatever was allowed at the time. Doctors wrote scripts up to 99 plants. And trials, they weren't going through. They didn't want to go to trial. They knew because half the people on the jury were all medical marijuana users. So the charges all got dropped. So, you know, I got arrested for having a half of cartridge in my truck one time, and I got a misdemeanor for it and I had to pay $240, and I had to go to a class about like life skills. It was crazy. And I'm in there with the chief knows what these things are. I was in there with people that like stole underwear from Walmart. Like, this is what they made me go and do to get my charge dropped. So I'm already negatively affected by, I was arrested and I should never been because I'm protected under medical marijuana laws. And then so this would put me out. I didn't break the law. I was within medical my right, like most people were. And then a few other things to look at. Lake County as a whole is a high cannabis area. So it gets approval right there if you're going to get an equity grant for being in Lake County at this time frame that you're in. So that's kind of like a moot point. And so also I think an issue could come up with retailers are allowed to apply to the state for keeping 20% of the excise tax collected under an equity grant. Nothing that you guys can do can stop that. Maybe you can in the long run that I challenged you, but it's not a local authorization. It's a state thing. If you're a retail holder, this is something you're entitled to as a retail cannabis license holder at the state. What are those qualifications? You're negatively impacted from being arrested. And, you know, Lake County, I think camp numbers came out not too long ago, like eradication. I think we're number 2 on the list. We're always the top 3 on the list with the amount of plants being eradicated. So I think that's why the equity grant is here in Lake County for a multitude of reasons when it comes down to it. I think they listed the order of importance. I was interviewed during this, and some of the questions were like, what can you see in the city? And it wasn't, oh, we need more manufacturing. It was, we should incentivize certain things because we're in a city and we're not in the county where there's prime farmland everywhere. So we're not going to get a bunch of growers coming in. The city already has the limit on dispensaries. So let's focus on other aspects of the business that we can bring here that would benefit the city and benefit business owners in the long run. And that's why you're probably seeing it in the order that you're seeing it listed. So I just think everyone should kind of look at it from that viewpoint. I think the way that they worded it wasn't for people necessarily breaking the law, because not in there does it say, if you broke the law and got arrested. It says if you're ever arrested or charged or any of these, you know, the whole list that it says. And a lot of medical marijuana users who had, you know, collectives, the dispensary was operating before legalization. So we had over 15,000 scripts on file of people coming to the dispensary over the course of the years to get their products. So I'm sure a lot of those people ultimately got arrested for simple possession, growing some plants. And I think if you were to look back on the years in Clearlake and say, how many times have we cross-referenced a potential illegal grow with the city to see if it was a registered medical grow? That's probably why so many people didn't get arrested in the city for growing a few plants in their backyard. But people in the county, for instance, were getting arrested for growing plants in their yard or growing plants in their properties under medical marijuana laws. So I think there's a lot more to look at when it comes down to it. I'm not here to say who should or shouldn't get it, but if you're trying to find a happy medium, maybe you prove that, yeah, I was arrested and charged, but the outcome of my case was XYZ and it was dropped or reduced or turned into something else given the circumstances. You know, I think ultimately it's just trying to find common ground. I think every part of the list on there makes sense, you know, aside from the arresting part, which is, I think, going to cause the most issues for people to think about. So I just think also, like, you know, why should I go get an equity grant from the state because I got arrested because I can qualify on that? but then someone else can't. And I think it's going to come up with a lot of potential issues that maybe the attorney should review and look at, because it's like, how come he got it for this reason, but this guy didn't get it for the same reason? So I always like showing the cards of what's out there of like, hey, these are all the problems I think both sides can have. And I think it's definitely worth considering when you look at it from that viewpoint. Thank you.
Any additional comments here? Additional, yeah, quick.
I just wanted to, Mr. Jennings made a comment about medical marijuana. And you all weren't here then, but I stood before the city council when they decided to allow the medical marijuana in the city of Clearlake. And I suggested that we not do that. We didn't have to do it. And I didn't see a reason to do it. We did it. And what it generated was a lot of illegal grows. People were going, finding vacant lots, putting up fences and growing, I don't know how many plants. I don't know how many people were arrested, if any were, but I know we had a problem after the medical marijuana was approved in the city with illegal grows. And you would know that. Pardon me? Well, we probably did, but that made it worse. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it made it worse. So I just wanted to mention that. There was one more thing he mentioned and I can't think of what it was. So I'll sit down. There was, anyway.
Any more public here? If not, anybody on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
There is a hand raised on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Hi there, Erin McCarrick, City of Clearlake. I'm very sorry I can't be there in person. It's just a really busy time, which is good for the city, right? With my work. I also really wanted to be face-to-face with everyone because this is an issue that's really important to me. And I'm so thankful for the city for bringing this up and for talking about it. Also, I will have to wish Mayor Slutin thank you and best of luck in person as well. So the issue of past criminal record did come up the last time this came before the board, and spent some time looking at the equity manual and realizing that it's the ability for the city of Clearlake to prioritize that criteria. So it's necessary for that to be part of the state because, as Mr. Jennings noted, there were convictions that just didn't necessarily match up with the penalty of the crime, or maybe someone was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe they had something on them that was okay, but they still got that conviction. Or maybe they were just, growing for people with medicine that was considered illegal that is now legal now. So anybody who's ever had a sip of moonshine or knows anybody who makes moonshine or knows anybody who was a rum runner back in the day when alcohol was prohibited, was under prohibition, it's very similar. Something that is now not illegal at all. Go down to any corner market and pick up a 6-pack, pick up a, whatever your preference is for people who drink. It's not illegal now, but it was. And so it was saying, I don't know if that's the best analogy, but it's just something that's not terribly relevant. So, but still, you're able to prioritize. And there are people who the question was, who's out there wondering, is there a place for me? Well, there are people. I know people who have been convicted for having a few plants over too many, who are doing it to support sick family members. And there's also people who enjoy smoking cannabis, but don't feel that it's a career because it's been looked down upon, and now they have the ability to have it. I know a female veteran in the LGBTQ community who would absolutely benefit from something like that. And as a current operator, and as somebody who has potential, expansion, as most of the operators do, I could potentially set aside a license or a part of land or something that person could get the license in their own name. It's empowerment. It's not employment. It's empowerment to say, you now are an entrepreneur and the state is here to help you. And hey, guess what? The city is here to help you. The city can help with your initial fees. They can also help put you in touch with attorneys. They can help put you in touch with accountants. And it also doesn't need to be that lofty. The county is doing something as simple as helping with taxes that, were maybe a little bit over what people expected. So they didn't necessarily budget those taxes. And it's a way for the county to make sure that they recoup they recoup money from operators. So I think the biggest fix with the concern about the illegal operators was that the city of Clear Lake has the authority to prioritize what they want to see. So they could say that we prioritize somebody who is making strides to, become an entrepreneur. There's just ways that you can build it that enable reward for heart. Yeah. I don't want to get lost in semantics here, but I do appreciate the council taking this up. I think it's a good opportunity. If you approve it, it could just go nowhere. The city doesn't even have to apply for it, but this enables you to apply for it. The other important thing is that December 15th is the deadline to apply for the grant of the second funding, because the city of Clear Lake got the initial funding that helped. I think it was maybe $100,000 that enabled the city to do the study and to potentially create a program. They're now eligible for the second round of funding. And again, that there's a broad scope of how that can be used. Yes, grants can be tricky. They can come with that, but this is a pretty broad one and pretty much local jurisdiction one. So December 15th is the deadline for that. So it enables the option to apply for it. Again, it can just disappear and go nowhere, but it just gives the option. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any additional comments on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
There are no further hands raised on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council. Madam Councilwoman Overton.
Okay, so I'm kind of reading through this here, and I wish this was for every business. I mean, it's unfortunate that it's just cannabis. So it seems to me like I was going through all this, that this is going to be time consuming for the city. It seems like it could be a lot of time consumed for the city. So if we did this, who's going to be the person that's time is going to be spent on this?
Well, I mean, I think it's, at least my interest wouldn't be to create a very time consuming program. I mean, it kind of depends on how we set it up. Miss McCarrick brought up what the county did, and I don't say this too often, but it was pretty genius, where they actually just used the money to pay themselves taxes. They gave it to growers, and then they used it to pay the taxes that they were supposed to pay. So the county got pretty much all of it back. That didn't take a lot of reporting or staff time or anything like that. I did talk to Patrick Sullivan, who kind of administers this for the county and set this up. And there are certainly options that would be extremely time consuming from staff perspective. Now, we can use up to 10% of the money to cover those costs, but if it was to run over that, they wouldn't be eligible to be paid with the grant fund. So.
And okay, and how much was the grant?
Well, there's a lot of options, actually. It's not a set amount. I think, at least initially, my recommendation would be that we would not apply for over 500,000. There is some additional reporting requirements and things that kick in if you get over 500,000 from the grant. So.
Else?
I mean, I do want to just clarify for the council that the eligibility criteria, we've talked about the conviction thing. I researched the requirements of the state program. There is not a specific requirement that be included in our program. It's supposed to be based on the assessment that's done. And when you submit an application, you're scored based on essentially how well the state thinks your application sort of responds to that assessment of the needs in the cannabis business community. But it's not a requirement that it be in there.
Question, Councilman Kramer.
Yeah, not questions, comments. A year ago when this came, the thing that bothered me the most was that we are rewarding folks convicted of cannabis offenses, whether it's a felony or a misdemeanor. that's still in there. It didn't come out. It didn't change. And just going back on, I think there's three different things on this that are troublesome to me, and that's the last, on the last page in section 2, those referring to backyard cultivation abatement of property, convictions personally and convictions of family members. All of those are, I think Mr. Hughes said it very well. We're rewarding bad behavior. I can't get past that. You all know that, I think when I was towards the end of my mayoral term, we had a set amount, I think 9 total permits that we could give out. I suggested that we get rid of that and just go with what the zoning allows. I'm certainly not against legal cannabis growing in the city. I talk a lot with Mr. Jennings. I also talk a lot with Mr. Hughes. I talked with Chief White today. Bent Mr. Flores ear quite a bit. This thing, I'm trying to look at it and see how I could support it. I even read this, the CEA, the Cannabis Equity Assessment. It would seem to me that this document produced by Humboldt State, they had a conclusion they wanted to come to, and then they wrote the thing to come to that conclusion. I don't put much faith at all in that document, to be honest with you. I don't think it proves a thing. As far as getting money from the state, heck, I'd love to get $500,000. I'd love to see it though I'd love to see them come up with a grant program where they're helping our tourism industry, our restaurants, clothing stores, small businesses. But no, what we're doing is looking at helping just cannabis. And I don't, again, have a problem with that per se, but I have a huge problem with rewarding bad behavior. And if that conviction is left in there, I cannot vote in affirmative on this. That's kind of the bottom line.
Okay, Councilman Claffey.
So just to clarify, in our permitting process, are drug convictions taken into account?
Well, there are requirements for background check, but I'm not sure what all of the triggers there are. I know that the state has some more specific requirements related to that on who they will issue a permit to, but not familiar with the details of it.
So right now, we don't restrict that you know of anyone with the majority of the drug convictions that pop up here. We don't restrict them from getting a permit. And as I understand it, the $5,000 is coming from the state. They established a program because they felt there was an imbalance. You know, to me, it's we're not drawing a line in the sand at the permit level. Why are we now pushing away $500,000? Because we may not agree with the program, but that program was designed to help entrepreneurs that we are giving permits to potentially within our city. I echo Councilmember Overton's sentiments. I would love for this program to be for all entrepreneurs. I don't see this as being a line in the sand that we should draw to turn away funding that could potentially help our folks here. And on top of that, we have the control to structure the program in different ways, as has been outlined. So if we feel really strongly that some things should be weighted higher than others, then we can implement that. But let's not just say no to a program that was designed for certain intentions. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to help our folks.
Vice Mayor Purdock, go. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo Councilman Kramer's concerns. I had the same opinion. I also bet Mr. Flores' ear about this. We can strike that out of the ordinance and still move forward to get the grant for those members who apply without criminal issues or history. The other thing that I was concerned about is we have members in our community who kind of had a propensity to stretch the approvals that they were given. Our code enforcement has been impacted significantly with grows that were over the size that they were permitted, and they had to deal with that. So we have had some negative impacts within our jurisdiction. Of course, the county has seen the same, and those are my concerns of rewarding past criminal behavior. I think that we should be able to look at it on a case by case, and I would feel comfortable with staff being allowed to have that latitude.
So we seem to have, go ahead, Councilman.
Just to clarify and probably to echo Vice Mayor Purdock's feelings, I believe that people are innocent and proven until proven guilty. So that's why I use the word conviction, not arrest. If you can take the word, if you can take references, rewards for 2 folks that were convicted of these offenses. Yeah, they knew, to me, when the program was, when it was illegal, instead of fighting to make change onto the program, as I think Mr. Jennings has been a champion of, I have a lot of respect for what he's done, and he's tried to make change. The one thing when he was arrested, he wasn't convicted of it because he had the medical license. So my focus would be, I don't particularly, this is not something that I'm real high on, but I will support it if the reference to rewarding convicted folks convicted of cannabis offenses is taken out of that, then I could probably support it.
What is that? Just a clarification. What was that say in the resolution?
Oh, it's not in the resolution. You need to look at,
In the eligibility, the program.
it's page 43 of the PDF, eligibility criteria, section 2. While you're looking that up, maybe, I know Chief White has something he wants to share.
Go ahead, Chief.
Members of the council and the public. I had the opportunity to have quite an in-depth discussion with the Humboldt State representatives when they were doing this. Since I came here in 2018, I've tried to learn about the industry and understand. Mr. Jennings has educated me a lot, and others involved. And I thought going through it that, if there's money on the table and there's an opportunity for us to get things on the right track, that it makes sense. I will tell you that one of the concerns that I had was in the eligibility criteria. And I talked to them about this, is the residency portion. It's looking between 2008 through 2016. But then you go down to abatement experience and it talks about 2015 to 17. And really, if we're looking at trying to help our community, which is an extremely poor community, unless the grant manual says that we have to limit it within that. When I had talked to them, I said, I thought it was important that if people were to get involved with it, that they either live in the city currently and that those people are prioritized, or they have some direct connection to the city, or even maybe within the county, obviously maybe living right outside the city. And it was disappointing that when it came back that they narrowed that in, because almost every review that I've been a part of for cannabis operations in the city, funding has been an issue. And if there's a way to put some more funding to make it actually happen, it seemed like it would be a good thing. The abatement experience, I think, is rather problematic from the council's perspective, because if you look at the timeline through 2017, an abatement doesn't actually happen until somebody's been given notice to take the stuff out. They refuse to do it, and then ultimately an order, either a judicial order or whatnot, has to be issued. And the concern becomes is when you go to the next section, it talks about that these items have to be given weight by the city. And so conceivably, you could have 2 people that were growing cannabis during that time, and the one person who, when they were put on notice by the city, ultimately cleared it out. But then you have another one who an abatement had to actually happen. This person's now eligible based upon a higher weighting criteria. That seems problematic. The conviction piece, looking through it, I almost thought reading it back when we were looking at this originally and working with the Humboldt group, that if you struck the conviction part there and just make, hey, if you got convicted or you didn't, why should you get higher priority just because you did it? And if you look at it from an equity perspective, when I talked to the Humboldt folks about this, my concern is, what about the people that couldn't even enter into it because of fear of prosecution, because it was made illegal back then? So now all of a sudden they can't, if they're trying to become part of this industry, they can't get a leg up. To me, the real issue is when people come to create the cannabis businesses and so forth, is that they have a solid business plan. They're looking at employing people locally. They're looking at being good neighbors within the community, all those sorts of things. But when you unhear it, kind of steers those. So, I would suggest or think that you maybe think about just striking it together. If somebody has a conviction or not, why should that prioritize them getting the funding, but rather to look at residency consideration, ownership, veteran status, the size of the operation, low income status. But to say that because somebody ultimately had to reach the end of getting abated, that they're higher priority just seems problematic, especially with all the code enforcement issues we have in the community. So those are my thoughts, just having been involved with the process with Humboldt and then kind of seeing how things have played out in the city. Thank you.
Okay, well,
Go ahead, Councilman Wilverton.
I agree with what the chief has said. I mean, that it has been kind of confusing going through all this stuff, but I understand we need to make a decision so that you can file for the grant, correct? Because you only have till the 15th. Is that what it is?
Well, yeah.
And so we can create this, take out what we choose to take out.
Yeah, that's the way I understand the program. I mean, the only, I don't know if risk is the right word, but the way the program appears to be set up is the state will score the application based on its sort of response to the assessment that was done. And so, I don't see any reason why the conviction history could be completely removed. Abatement experience completely removed. What I don't know for sure is whether the state would compare the assessment to this and think that somehow we're not doing a good job of implementing what the assessment identified and not score us as high. But, we don't really know that without going through it. So
Could we ask the expert in the back row about that particular thing?
I don't know if he's part of the state judging criteria or not.
Well,
Yeah.
but he knows, I think he knows more about it than anybody in this room. Would you mind?
Please, Mr. Jennings. Well, we're asked you not as a public comment, as an expert.
No worries. Yep, understand. Chris Jennings. Yes, sir. What's the question exactly?
The criteria for, if we took out the conviction criterias and the abatement criteria,
You think
what
it's going
is
to negatively affect you
earlier
guys?
today you mentioned to me Lake County, well, when you were talking earlier, you mentioned that Lake County is
We're
judged criteria is very high, just
as a
because.
whole, yeah, the county as a whole definitely qualifies, if you're living here at that time period. And if you go back historically and look at Camp used to do all the eradications. Camp's still around. Everyone thought Camp left. Camp's still here. We're still top 3 on the list of eradications when it comes to the state. I think Santa Barbara was number 1. I think we're number 2. And Trinity is always a big one. Everyone forgets about Trinity. There's a lot of craziness back there. But I think what you have is a huge program that's like, hey, here's a huge book for you guys. It's open for you to do whatever you want with. It's a coloring book, right? And you get to color in what you want to color in and take what you want to take and connect the dots and write it how you want to write it. And I don't think you're gonna have a mass influx of people coming and applying for these grants, because Erin will probably know best on this one if I remember, because she knows who applied for the county, but I'm pretty sure the county was like begging people to come and take the money. At one point, it was like, everyone's getting 25,000. Didn't they have enough people? Then they're like, we're doubling the money. Everyone gets 50K and we're going to pay your taxes.
My specific question, just
Just
narrow you
keep on
down a
that.
little bit.
So is it going to change how we score at the state if we take those 2 out?
Of course, it's going to change how you're going to score with the state, but I don't think it's going to change to a point of it's going to like put you at the bottom category and you're going to give you peanuts.
So instead of
on what
being
you're
3,
asking.
it's going to be 7.
Instead of being, well, yeah, I guess so. You could probably say that. I think if you took out the one word conviction, I talked to Russ about this, Mr. Kramer, and it's just like, it makes sense, because it's like, I think if you can if you have to articulate your point to the state, why you want to take certain things out, I think there's good reasons behind that, you know, and no one else is here to argue it. So it's just me and it's my viewpoint, and it is for what it is, but it makes sense. You don't want people convicted of crime, but we're still going to honor those who've been arrested and everything else. I don't think it's going to change your grading scale that much when it comes down to it.
That was the question.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thanks, Chris.
explanation.
I don't know if, since you allowed Mr. Jennings to come back up, Miss McCarrick also has her hand.
Sure.
up again.
Sure. Go ahead, Aaron.
Thank you. I think I just got unmuted. Yeah, I'm also with someone who's a policy expert in cannabis world. So she was going to say a couple things. And I mean, cannabis obviously has to be involved because it is a cannabis equity grant. But part of the study that Humboldt did was saying that because of cannabis, there is a lower economic, it affects everybody. You know, we know people whose parents have, been affected by cannabis and their children pay the consequences of that. So that could be a criteria. So it's really just saying that you are acknowledging that cannabis has had an effect and that people want to get themselves out of it. It could also be used for, like Alan had said, was that you could start charging the facilities fee that hasn't, I don't know if it's been fully charged, and actually recoup some of that money. So I'm going to hand it over to Nara Dalbaka, who is familiar with this.
Who is coming on?
Hi, my name's Nara Dalbaka. I live in Hidden Valley, but I'm originally from Oakland and was part of a lot of the folks that worked on Oakland's equity and have worked for a couple equity organizations in the state as well. And I just wanted to address a few things that I've heard, which is that there is a way to put a residency requirement in a way that is constitutional. Oakland did it, and it's in part of the definitions to be eligible for to be deemed eligible under the Oakland program. You have to have had the conviction or had a family member who had a conviction. You have to have lived in a certain police beat that was deemed, of areas of highest arrest for a period of 5 to 10 years of your life. And that's a way to capture folks who lived in Clearlake, were affected by the war on drugs negatively. And I don't think that it's prioritizing people by having folks who have a conviction to be eligible for this, unless you are actually weighting them on an RFP, higher than somebody else. It's if it's eligibility, it's just, are you eligible to apply for this grant or this help or this fee waiver at the state level? And that's money that comes through the city of Clearlake, which certainly suffered from the war on and has spent a lot of money arresting people, incarcerating people for something that we're starting to understand is a healthcare crisis and not a criminal justice, shouldn't have been a criminal justice issue. And I think there were a lot of people in the county that probably broke the law around cannabis, and not everybody was arrested. And those who were arrested were significantly negatively economically impacted. And if those people that before cannabis was legalized in California are willing to step forward and say, we will follow these incredible regulations that, regulates this is heavier than pretty much any other product in the country. We will let the light be shown on us, but our lives were negatively impacted, or our kids or our parents or a spouse, our life was affected because we were arrested for something that a lot of people did and didn't get arrested for. And just as I'm sure Humboldt's shown you, that's poor communities and communities of color were disproportionately incarcerated for drug use that was spread pretty evenly across races. So
wrap it up.
Yeah. So I think that's those were the couple of things that I wanted to address and just say, I think it's really great that Clearlake is considering this, and you all deserve to have some money from this because you, as a city, have suffered the impacts of the war on drugs, just like the people who live there.
Right. Thank you. Okay, council, we're gonna reclose the public hearing unless, Dave, you have one more thing? Okay, good. I just want to make sure I'm equitable to everybody. We'll close the public hearing again. Councilwoman Overton.
Okay, so from listening to everybody, it almost sounds like if we don't have the criminal process in here, that's kind of what the whole point is. Is that the whole point of this?
Well, I
I
mean,
mean, that's what I'm hearing over and over. So
again, I don't have a super deep understanding of this program. I believe that there is some truth to the fact that sort of that was the state's intent in creating this type of thing. I'm just sitting here looking through the eligibility criteria and the program manual and the scoring and all that stuff. I mean, there's a total, when you submit the application, there's a total of 200 points. There's a few criteria kind of based on the assessment. That first 100 points, depending on how everyone scores in that phase, then can go to the sort of second phase. If you have at least 50 points, you can go into phase 2, and then it's based on more things like population and various things. But, you know, it's a little hard to know how they're going to address this, but there's one of these questions in the application that has a value of up to 10 points that appears to be based on the eligibility criteria and its response to history and impacts from cannabis prohibition / the war on drugs. So I think if we just eliminated the whole thing, this is probably where we would lose points on application somewhat. I mean, how important
lose
is
10 points
is
if we took it out.
Yeah, I mean, and there's various levels in here, so it's not either 0 or 10. I'm assuming that we would get some points under this, but just to try to give you a scale of what could be potentially.
I'm kind of curious as why are we so worried about it when we sit here and let them get permits and we don't care whether they've had, so, you know, we don't care that they have a criminal background to go get their permits. Am I correct? We're not doing
Well,
background checks.
I don't
on
know
them?
if we should say we don't care. I mean, we do require a background check, and you know, it is.
But have we denied anybody because they've been arrested? before?
Not that I'm aware of, but you know, there certainly is the option there. Miss Swanson just sent me the thing that we have in the municipal code. So you know, it requires a review by the police chief and the city manager to make recommendations if there's an issue in the background check. So, but I'm not aware.
We're not
that we've-
necessarily deny
we've
them,
not
even if they.
denied a permit based on that,
Right.
to my knowledge.
So I mean,
Same as this.
so why can't we just do the same thing with what you do with the permits, that it's as far as a criminal, I mean, we're talking the criminal part here now, as far as that part. I mean, if we're not, if you have the right to do that with the permits, then why can you not have the same right with this here to whether to move forward or not with it? I mean, because let's face it, I think this whole thing was a point of people got arrested and went to prison for years for a joint or a little clip, you know, and I think that's how this kind of all started, because people were like crazily arrested and thrown in jail for really crazy things. And we all know that happened. And, you know, so I think that's kind of how this is kind of starting to come afloat. So if they, of course, back then it was a felony. They went to prison for years, but you know, for a joint, is that what we're going to say? Okay, because you had a joint in whatever year it was, you can't even apply for this because they went to jail over a joint. So that's what I'm saying. Is there a way that we can look at it the same way you're doing the permits and say, this was an unreasonable, because I think that's what this whole program's about, an unreasonable arrest in prison, that it should not affect him to not continue on doing something as a business in here. So I'm just asking the question, is that something that can
but
happen?
That would require a lot more work.
Right, that's what I'm saying. This may, and that's why I'm asking the question.
Well, I mean, if I could, I mean, from what I'm hearing from everyone or trying to piece this together, I mean, it sounds like there is some interest in having a program. I mean, that's the first question. If you just don't want to have the program, then
No, I think
we
it's
just move on quickly. If you do want to have the program, you know, I would recommend making a few changes based on the concerns. Either I think what Chief White mentioned about some of the dates, I don't quite understand why they were put in that way. I think some of that should change, like the residency is very narrow. Maybe that time is changing, then you eliminate the conviction related item there, or just take those out entirely. To me, those are kind of the options to try and address the concerns. You have sort of a middle ground, or just eliminate the things. We apply, see what happens.
Okay,
All
Council,
right.
Councilman Kramer.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with it. It's, you know, we're not telling them that they can't apply for this. That's not the point of this. It's just that I don't think they should be getting positive credit for the conviction part.
And I
You know, if
agree.
they're just been arrested and not convicted, they're not guilty of anything. But the conviction part is something I cannot get around. You know, if that comes out of there, I feel a lot better about it.
Councilman Claffey.
And I appreciate you continue to share your feelings, and I appreciate everyone of the experts chiming in here. You know, my concern is I know the intent of why this program was created, and if we start stripping out sort of the key elements, will we lose eligibility for the program? Will we get overlooked and drop down? So if we believe that we can, by stripping out convictions, by making the tweaks as recommended in the other areas, if we think that application based on our historic impact is still going to be sufficient to do this program, I'm all for stripping that out. My priority is to get the program here, to get that state funding to empower entrepreneurs. So if it's only 10%, if it's only 5% of the total application, and we're not taking, you know, we lose 5 points on that, I'm okay with that, as long as we still get the program.
Yeah. I have the same opinion as Councilman Claffey. I mean, originally, as you know, I was born and raised in the Netherlands, and we didn't have that issue. So it's a matter of choice, in my opinion. So
I still have a question on this, though. May I ask it?
go ahead, Councilman.
Okay.
Odom.
But isn't this program being created because of the people going to prison over being arrested over stupid stuff like the joint and going to prison? So they have been convicted. They have went to prison, but it was over. And I know people that this has happened to. So that's the reason why it sticks in my head. And I believe that's why they're saying the criminals can apply, because if they were arrested back in some time and they did go to prison over the stupid little joint thing or the clip thing and stuff, that they could still qualify for this. So that's why I'm asking, is there a way to have an administration oversee, depending on the type of conviction and when it happened, whether we can make judgment whether they can apply or not? So that's my question. And that might be something Dean might need to answer, or maybe the chief might need to answer. I don't know.
The chief, is there a way to do that?
He's like, I don't know.
About somebody going to prison over a joint? It hasn't been a felony since 1975 for simple possession of a joint. So I'm not sure if it's somebody prior to that.
Texas.
So if you're convicted of a felony, then you probably shouldn't. But if you complete.
No, I don't think, I want to clarify, my comment earlier wasn't that somebody shouldn't be able to apply because of that. I think the issue, at least as I saw it when talking with the Humboldt State, is you're right. It was created to people disproportionately affected. I guess the concern, it just doesn't seem exactly logical that if somebody happened to get convicted, but let's say somebody else just got arrested but not convicted related to it, so now this one gets a higher priority because potentially there was a stronger, bigger case. I mean, I guess you could argue that they were more disproportionately impacted between the other side. But like I was looking, it was brought up about the Oakland cannabis equity, at least according to the website, it says you can apply for it if you're a resident, you have an annual income, and either you lived in these certain police beats or you were arrested after 1996 and convicted of a cannabis crime. So their criteria is pretty wide. But I also hear, and obviously the discussion when the concern, we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot if we think it's going to mess up the criteria, but maybe it's in the manual that you just make a decision that that shouldn't, if it comes down to two applicants or whatever, the prioritization should be more on what's the overall thing,
Right.
as opposed to just, well, you got convicted and you didn't, or you got abated and you didn't. But that's just a opinion of talking through that. You're all the policymakers.
But then the decision would be made by
Administrative,
somebody.
yeah,
in
city.
Staff, right?
I guess, yeah. I mean, and I don't really want to surmise too much on legislative intent, but
Right.
the state's website says that when Prop 64 was passed in 2016, in its statement of purpose and intent, it calls for regulating cannabis in a way that reduces barriers to entry into the legal and regulated market. So,
Okay.
you know, that's what they're stating the intent of, in part, this program was. And I don't know what to say beyond that.
All right,
That
we need to
sounds
come
like-
to a conclusion here.
That sounds to me like if we took that part out, then it really wouldn't really, doesn't sound to me like it would hurt us any end point wise, really.
I think there's that's just why I'm raised. I think there's the possibility that they won't view it as strong in that regard, but you know, I don't know. I think there's a
About if
concern with
How about if we took out, because people can be, I mean, if it's a misdemeanor, it's just a misdemeanor. It's not necessarily that big of a deal. So, I mean, what if we just went with, if it's a misdemeanor that they could still apply, and if a higher offense, they can't.
All right, Ms. Vice Mayor Purdock, any last comments?
No,
No. Okay. Let's make a decision here.
So I would be comfortable for this application period to take the risk, take out the conviction part, apply it on the strength of our status as an impacted community. And if that doesn't fly, no, we'll come back and say, all right, this needs to be in and we want to get this state funding. Also addressing the residency and abatement issues, I think that should be factored in. But I think if we scratch out the conviction piece, I still think we'll have a strong application. So I'm willing to move forward with that.
So you want to leave the abatement part in, but
No, the
take that.
modifications that the chief suggested.
which I think was just to remove it, right?
Can I offer, maybe instead of removing it, is that they were subject to abatement or notice of abatement. And then now you've equalized between both sides, the people who complied with the city orders at the same way as those who, for whatever reason, didn't. And then you have an extra criteria. So I would
I'll
offer
put
that
that
as
in.
a
Okay, add that
suggestion.
in.
Got it?
Okay, now on the conviction history, take out convicted.
So Councilmember Kramer, if we did, for example, conviction history,
so we're talking about the two from the bottom.
Conviction history.
Sale, possession, that one,
Family.
and the one above, the family and the individual.
so would you strike those two sections completely or just take out who was arrested and or convicted? Take out the and or convicted.
I'd feel better taking them both out completely, but certainly.
Be missing some
Have to,
stuff
we
there.
have
If
to
we
compromise
did
here.
the whole thing, I think we just need to strike the,
Okay, so are we
Who
doing it?
was arrested but not convicted, if you want to put the rest.
So arrested stays, conviction goes. What about the family conviction?
So to be clear, Councilmember Kramer, you said arrested and not convicted as a
Arrested but not convicted. How do you feel about that, Vice Mayor Purdock, since you're
that's fine.
All right, I think we got somewhere.
Okay, what about the family conviction? That was mentioned a couple times, or
same thing in my mind?
well, if somebody,
Well, you're-
if
you
somebody,
can't be
I,
responsible for
yeah.
what your father did.
right, yeah, I don't think that, I think if somebody's, yeah.
I mean, or what your kid did.
Yeah.
but we're still talking about this being a benefit to them, right?
Yeah.
So back to Councilmember Kramer's perspective, like,
Same thing. I would like to see the convicted part taken out on the
So it
family.
wouldn't matter whether their family has been convicted or not, they get no
Who
more,
was
they don't
arrested
get a
but-
higher priority is what we're
Well,
saying.
who was
right?
arrested but not convicted, for both of those would be the way I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I mean,
How can you be responsible for your kid or your parent or your uncle or that happens to be living in your house?
They're not.
They probably set the tone for the
No,
child.
not necessarily.
That's what the program is
That's what I'm
about.
offering.
Bo.
I mean, they're not responsible. All we're saying is that if your family member did get convicted, you don't have an extra leg up.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Okay, I'm good with
That
that.
works for me.
All right. Are we
Okay,
ready to-
one more
to move?
thing, that I would recommend on residency consideration. The way it is worded now, you have to be a resident of Clearlake for at least 2 years between 2008 and 2016. I would recommend changing that to be, I mean, we could say a resident for at least 2 years after 2008. I'm not sure
Shouldn't
why
they
we're
be just a
limiting it.
resident, period?
Well, we can do that
In
too.
order
I
to
just am
apply
not
for
sure
grant
why
from the
that
city of
8-year
Clearlake, why would
window.
we give the grant money that we're having to manage to somebody that doesn't even live in Clearlake?
So you want them to
Or
be a current
or they're
resident?
operating. They'd
Current
either have to
resident.
live or operate. And I mean, it's just like, to me is, or, I mean,
Gotta manage
at least
it.
keep
We're
it in
gonna do
Lake
it.
County anyway. Let's just at least say Lake County. I don't want to be having somebody come from Oakland up here, get our money, start a business, but they're really not even,
I
you know,
think Lake County
here to
has a
take care of
program.
it.
Lake County has a program, so they can apply to Lake County for, if they live in the.
Oh, it has to be a resident of the city. Period.
Resident of the city.
President of the city.
It's a city program.
Got it.
How about the, well, how about like Lower Lake? And I know that the county does have the money though, so.
That's not in the city, resident of the city.
And you know, because I think we do need to have some kind of criteria here, so
All right. Can we move forward?
that sounds.
We can unless there's any other changes and if with some type of motion to approve the resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2022-74, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Clear Lake approving the Cannabis Equity Manual and adoption of the equity program with the amendments that we've discussed.
Yeah, we have a motion by Councilman Claffey and a second by Councilman Kramer. I will do a voice call. It's probably better with that since
Have to, yeah.
Vice Mayor Purdock is out of town. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Overton. Councilmember Kramer.
Aye.
Councilmember Claffey.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Purdock.
Aye.
Mayor Slotin.
Aye. Okay, we move on to item number 5 on the agenda. Consider a resolution to provide grant funding to Chelsea Investment for Affordable Housing. Mr. Flora.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, council members. So let's see, when was this? Back in May, the council approved a similar resolution related to this. So this is the 80-unit affordable housing project on state-owned land up near the hospital. The application for funding requires this resolution from the council. So this is essentially pass through of grant funds that the city is eligible for development of affordable housing. And I'll try to address any other questions you may have.
Any questions for staff? If not, open to the public. Any public comment in the room here? Anybody on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
There are no hands raised on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Back to the council for action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2022-73 and read by title only. A resolution of the governing body of the city of Clear Lake supporting the application of Chelsea Investments for local government matching grants program, approving Clear Lake Apartments budget for the local government matching grants program.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Kramer and a second by Vice Mayor Purdock. Voice call vote again, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Overton. Councilmember Kramer.
Aye.
Councilmember Claffey.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Purdock.
Aye.
Mayor Slotin.
Aye. Item number 6, consideration acceptance of the November 2022 election results. City, Madam Clerk.
Honorable Mayor and council members, your council is being asked tonight to adopt resolution 022-75, declaring the results of the November 8th general municipal election. The This afternoon, we received the certification from the Registrar of Voters, which you have before you. There were 6,981 registered Clearlake voters in this election and 2,784 ballots cast. That was 39.88% of the eligible voters who actually voted in this election. The canvass of votes are as follows. For Councilmember Kramer, received 1,604 votes. Mayor Slotin received 1,515 votes. As stated in prior reports, there were no qualified city treasurer candidates. So it is appropriate at this time for the council to adopt the resolution seating Councilmember Kramer and Mayor Slotin. And at that point, I would then administer the oath of office to both of them.
Okay, I guess we have any questions to staff? If not, we'll pursue the public. Any public comment on this? If not, anybody on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
There are no hands raised on the Zoom.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council for action.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 2022-75, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Clearlake, reciting the facts of the general municipal election held on November 8th, 2022, declaring the results and such other matters as provided by law.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Claffey and a second by Councilwoman Overton. All vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Overton,
Aye.
Councilmember Kramer,
Aye.
Councilmember Claffey,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Purdock,
Aye.
and Mayor Slotin.
Aye. We go to item number 7, appointment of the 2023 mayor.
I need to, you both need to,
Oh,
the oath of
sorry.
office.
The clerk wants to swear you in.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
I will support the Constitution
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America
Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of California,
of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without mental reservation
without mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
the obligations which are about to enter.
I guess I went too hard.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Melissa.
The last item on the agenda, appointment of the 2022 mayor and vice mayor. May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion that we appoint our vice mayor Russ Purdock as our mayor for 2020.
Sorry, I'm sorry, council, we can't hear mics on Zoom.
You know what? Sorry, that was my fault. I
Thank
forgot
you.
my mic on. Thank you. So I'd like to make the motion that we appoint Vice Mayor Russ Purdock for our mayor for 2023.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Overton and a second by Councilman Kramer. I'll say aye.
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 I need a roll call
Roll
vote.
call, roll call on this one.
Okay, go ahead.
Councilmember Overton,
Aye.
Councilmember Kramer,
Aye.
Councilmember Claffey,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Purdock,
Aye.
Mayor Slotin.
Aye. And I want to make the last motion.
Oh, I was gonna do that, but
No, I'm going to beat you to
go
it.
ahead.
I want to appoint David Claffey, Councilman Claffey, as vice mayor for the period of 2023.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Slotin and a second by Councilman Kramer. Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Overton,
Aye.
Councilmember Kramer,
Aye.
Councilmember Claffey,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Purdock,
Aye.
Mayor Slotin.
Aye. I want to thank everybody. I think we've had a very successful year this year. We've gotten all kinds of projects going. We're going to appoint a new police chief. We appointed a new public works director. We're moving forward and we're going all in the right direction. And we appointed a new finance director.
Mhm.
So
And
we got
Mr.
everything in order.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank you for all the work that you've done behind the scenes, a lot of it in pushing forward a number of projects, including the airport project, which I think we're further along than we've ever been. So thank you.
Here, thank you all.
If not,
Well, we got to wish everybody Merry Christmas. It's
Merry
the Christmas
Christmas and Happy New
season.
Year. We convene on January 5th, I believe.
Don't forget, this is the last time Chief White will be here at one of our.
Yeah,
meetings.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah, so let us, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
Well, we're still in
Okay, I'm gonna
denial.
go first.
I haven't enjoyed
So,
it,
so several things. Yes, I agree that we have moved forward. We have great staff and position. I'm so thankful for all of you guys stepping up and taking on these hard positions because, I've watched some of you guys kind of, I call it grow up here. And it's nice to see that we've got local people in some of the positions that they've worked for so hard to get there, and that you've proven yourselves to the community that you deserve these positions. So welcome, and I'm happy for you guys all. Unfortunately, we have a sad tone because our chief is going to be leaving us, who has taken us so far and brought our city and our technology so above and beyond what I ever thought we'd ever get. And you did it quickly. And I have no doubt that Martinez is going to be excited to have you there, and we'll miss you. And we thank you for your services that you have so generously contributed to our, not just during the day, but night, Texas, anything. You've been there for all of us. And, I cannot thank you enough for all of your great services and your companionship to everybody here, and your leadership to our police department, which I see is going to continue, and the training that you've done has been just way above and beyond anything we've ever had. So I hope your next chapter of your life, they welcome you with open arms, and we will miss you. Hopefully you'll come up and visit us. We have these big things coming up. February, we have Rotary, we have these events coming up. So I hope you come up and join us for those. So, and good luck with your new position.
Well, I just want to tack onto that. Very well said. You've shown us what a great leader looks like, and that's going to have ripple effects for many years to come. So thank you. Good luck. Do your best and well, and I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Yes, Chief White, I'm still in denial, however, but I guess we got to accept that you're going, and we're going to go forward. I think you've done a great job of training our new soon-to-be acting chief, as you have done a great job on taking on finance director for a period of time, sitting in for our city manager in a period of time. You've done every one of them very well, and you brought us into this 21st century on our IT. You've been amazing, even though I still think you're too young to carry a gun. All right, Chief, thank you.
Vice Mayor Purdock, any last comment?
I just want to thank the chief. He was a good man, good friend, and I just wish him well in all his future endeavors.
Also, I want to second that. Thank you, Chief White. You make the city better. You make the police department better. You have succeeded in where you came from. With that,
Well, wow.
Too late.
Glad I didn't have my finger under that thing. Just want to remind everyone that hopefully you'll come on Monday, the 19th, and share your speech again or expound upon a little bit. So hope to see you then.
all right, with
Merry
that,
Christmas.
everybody have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and be with your family and have a good time. Thank you very much.